Hello my dear viewers. Before I start this video today, I just wanted to give a quick disclaimer at the front. So, I wanted to make this video documenting and researching all the mechanics and interactions that have to do with combat against Father of the Flame in Hollow Knight Silksong. In that process, I feel like I've drove myself insane, because what I've learned is that trying to document and truly learn how Team Cherry designed Father of the Flame without going into code or without using secondary tools seems like a truly impossible or Herculean task. And even while I know everything I do at this moment, which is information I did not know at time of recording this video, I still think there's a lot of interactions that make zero sense, are glitched, or otherwise just don't work. Team Cherry made the most complicated boss in this game for seemingly very little reason. I don't know why they made Father of the Flame like this. And a lot of the problems I came across are documented on the Wiki and get explained by the Wiki. But I'm not going to show you the Wiki's explanation of the Father of the Flame mechanics, because to do so would deprive all of you dear viewers of the glorious confusion that I experienced while making this video. And if nothing else, I hope that that confusion is entertaining for all of you. I will tell you the mechanics at the end of this video, but until then, please enjoy watching Father of the Flame drive me insane. If I woke up as Hornet with the Architect crest on, you'd imagine I'd be able to beat Father of the Flame rather quickly, yes? Well, now imagine you are Hornet waking up with absolutely nothing on. You have no weapon, no tools, nothing. Do you think that Hornet would be able to beat Father of the Flame very quickly? What if I were to tell you, dear viewer, that the Hornet equipped with the Architect crest and the Hornet equipped with nothing can beat Father of the Flame in the exact same amount of hits? It is true, I don't have the exact reason for it, but somehow the 3 damage attack from Hornet on the left is just as effective at beating Father of the Flame as any level of needle upgrade from the Hornet on the right. And let me show you that in practice. Obviously you can't get to Father of the Flame while crestless in any normal circumstance, so I got here using cheats. And because you are naked, you don't really have the movement abilities you need to dodge or even really get up very well, so I just put on invincibility to make showcasing this easier. And while I was talking to your viewer, I beat one of the Father of the Flame's lanterns in 12 hits. Based on the damage we deal, you deal 3 damage while having no crest, and based on the Father of the Flame's damage modifiers, he has none, he takes full damage from all attacks. That would imply that his lanterns have 48 HP total, if they run on an HP system. If they don't run on an HP system, it just means that it would always take 12 hits to beat the lanterns. But I don't believe that is true, because I believe I have beaten Father of the Flame before by destroying these lanterns with less than 12 hits. At the very least, it takes 12 hits when you don't have anything equipped. And as for his main body, it takes slightly more, not anything massive, especially not when you are invincible. I think really not being hurt by the massive explosions of fire tends to make this fight a lot easier. I know, shocking, I'm sure. But yeah, by attacking with nothing but pogos, which theoretically do the exact same damage as every other attack Hornet has, it's just more convenient to attack with pogos on pretty much every crest in this fight, you can beat Father of the Flame with 30 hits to his main body and 12 hits to all of his lanterns. Now, compare that to the Architect crest. You'd expect that even with no tools, a needle that's been upgraded 3 times should tear through that 36 HP extremely fast. A needle upgraded 3 times does 17 base damage. That should take 3 hits at most to break any of these with a pogo, and a charged pogo from the Architect crest. But as it may not shock you to learn, since I told you already, dear viewer, it does not take 3 hits. Instead, the Architect crest takes all 12 pogos that Being Naked took. Hornet's almost max upgraded needle takes as many attacks to break these lanterns as her bare foot. Yes, this is the logic of this boss that Team Cherry decided to make. I don't understand, and frankly, It's going to be hard for any of you to understand, I'm sure, if you don't know the deeper mechanics of how this fight works. I certainly didn't when I was recording this at first, but my assumption at this point in time, and still my assumption now, is that the reason the Architect Crest Pogo is so bad for Father of the Flame is because it's a multi-hit attack. If any of you have used the Architect Crest Pogo before, or the Architect Crest in general, you'd know that its attacks are largely done in multiple bursts of damage. Instead of doing one hit like almost every attack in the game, your charged Pogo does, I believe, 3 total hits of damage, making up the exact same number that every other needle will get with one hit. So instead of getting a 17 hit from one attack, we get 3 procs of damage that add up to 17. Now, if that applies to Father of the Flame, that means it's likely our first hit is the only one being counted against him, because it doesn't show us doing 3 hits of damage versus him. And if our first hit is the only one being counted, that means our first hit does 5 or less damage. So when it does 5 damage, that's pretty close to the Naked Crest attack, which gives more reason for us to take 30 hits to beat his main body and 12 hits to beat any of his lanterns. So basically, you should not be using the Architect Crest Pogo against Father of the Flame, because it does not work the way Team Cherry designed it to, which is by dealing 3 ticks of damage. But what if we repeated this test with an unupgraded needle? The base needle only does 5 damage, so if our theory is correct, shouldn't it be doing something like 1 damage per charged Pogo with the Architect's Crest? And if that's the case, wouldn't that take almost 30 hits to break any singular lantern? And this was my idea, which would prove whether or not these lanterns have actual health bars, or if there's some nonsense going on that gives them a hit meter that changes depending on the damage you deal. I wished it wasn't that second option, because that option is far more confusing, and I don't know how I can prove that. But guess what, dear viewer? It's the second option. We have an unupgraded needle, and it took 12 hits to break a lantern. We had a nearly max upgraded needle, and it took 12 hits to break a lantern. I don't know, and I can't really find out by doing this, because guess what? I have an HP bar mod on, but bosses that don't have HP bars, they don't really let you see what's happening behind the scenes with that. So at this point, I just figured I can test other things. I've yet to beat this boss with under 12 hits. Maybe I could see a good way to beat Father of the Flame with less than 12 hits and see what modifies the amount of hits taken to beat him. So, since we were testing with the Architect Crest, I figured I'd show off how the attacks work when used by this crest. As I explained before, the charged Pogo splits the damage numbers into 3. The numbers themselves are irrelevant, as we have just learned they don't seem to affect the Father of the Flame at all. But the fact that the damage is split into 3 does seem to be taken into account, because at the very least, the Pogo seems to be doing such a low amount of damage that if there was a damage threshold, it's just not being counted. And when you have Pogos doing that kind of damage, you have to ask if regular attacks are doing better damage in this system. And yeah, while the Architect Pogo's multi-hit nature seemed to be not understood by Father of the Flame, its multi-hit nature is perfectly understood on every normal attack. I don't understand why this is the case. I can understand if the Architect Crest Pogo, if every multi-hit attack doesn't work the way it's supposed to, because the Father of the Flame is not an enemy per se. But as you can see, with most of my attacks here, they're getting double hits, which is what normally happens with the Architect Crest attacks that aren't the Pogo. The Pogo gets 3 hits, everything else gets 2 hits. And every other attack with multi-hits works fine. And not only does it work fine, it contributes way more damage than the one Pogo. So it seems to be working entirely properly. So if you want to use the Architect Crest, use normal attacks, never use the Pogo in this fight, okay? Let's finally move on to some other crests, shall we? Okay, so Team Cherry didn't know how to consistently program the Architect Crest for one boss fight. Big deal. They also didn't know how to program the Cogflies, and this is more proof that these things are not official enemies, because I think Cogflies only ever attack enemies, so they will not help you one iota during this boss fight. Incredible. But why don't we just get back to the basics? The Hunter's Crest has a basic pogo, it has basic attacks, it takes 6 hits to break these. Okay, we can rely on this. I turned off the invincibility cheats for a second because I was getting bored. But yeah, pogoing consistently requires 6 hits to break this. So maybe whatever is done to the Architect Crest halves or doubles rather the amount of hits it takes because the damage interval of a split attack does less damage. I don't know what the mechanics are. All I know is that using a pogo that's not the Architect Crest is likely just going to take 6 hits because most of these pogos only have 1 basic hit, okay? And if you do the same on Father of the Flame, instead of it requiring 30 hits, it's likely to require 15 hits if the same principles are in place. And at the very least, I could believe that those principles are consistent. Because when it comes to just single strikes, I feel like that's what this boss was designed around. And I think I counted 15 there, but it might have been 1 or 2 off. There might be like slight damage variations. If it's around 14 to 16 hits, this seems consistent. But what about things like charge attacks? If all the single strike attack seems to work as normal, what about the many different kinds of needle strikes? Well, starting with the Hunter's Needle Strike, using it normally does 1.4 times your normal attack damage twice. And if that same kind of calculation was applied here, it meant that we would destroy a lantern in 5 hits, not 6 hits. And as you can see, that's exactly how it worked here. I whiffed on one of them, so I destroyed it in 5 hits. If you want to look at something like the Reaper Crest, it does 2.5 times your needle damage. That would mean, instead of 6 hits, it would destroy this lantern in 3 hits. Closer to 2, but, you know, it doesn't matter if you get under 6, because you still have to hit 6 eventually. And now that we've made it clear that these needle strikes seem to work properly, I once again have to ask why so many issues come up with the Architect Crest, but never mind. I'm not going to get an answer, I'm speaking rhetorically. The needle strikes at the very least seem to work correctly when it comes to damage calculations. And I say this under the assumption still that I don't know whether these things have health bars or if they're breaking for some other reason, because as I showed with my earlier things with the Architect Crest and the Naked Crest, I don't know how those make sense when you try to apply damage numbers to them, but whatever. You shouldn't be using needle strikes mostly in this fight at all, because they're really hard to land when you're mid-air. And one thing I wanted to check lastly is if damage is something that is calculated, something like the barbed bracelet would make it take less hits to break lanterns. It takes 6 hits with normal needle attacks to break these lanterns. With the barbed bracelet, it takes 5. That means either the barbed bracelet is taken into account when calculating how many hits defeat the Father of the Flame, or the Father of the Flame has some kind of health meter. Now, I don't know how the Father of the Flame can have a health meter, given what we've looked at before, given that Architect Crests, Pogos, take 12 hits, whether your needle does 5 damage, or it does 13, 17, whatever it was. There are big differences in numbers, okay? So that's an inconsistency in that kind of logic, but the barbed bracelet seems to imply that yes, there is some kind of health bar here. And I think if we just continue down this path, we're going to see Architect is bad except for its normal attacks. Those seem to work better than a lot of the attacks I get from the other crests. I believe they broke the lanterns faster than 6 hits with just normal attacks. And other than that, let's just move on to something hopefully less complicated, Silk skills. My dear viewers, it was far more complicated. So here's the deal. I have the Threadstorm, probably the strongest Silk skill in Hollow Knight Silksong. And using just one Threadstorm, if I extend it, destroys every lantern in this arena. Now, if we were still going under the theory that HP mattered, I deal 6 hits with 17 damaged needles. That means I'm dealing a bit over 100 damage, 102, to all of these lanterns when I hit them 6 times. Let's say the HP is around 100. Well, the Threadstorm, at its absolute max damage potential, gets just above 90 damage. So it doesn't deal. It's not based on HP, is it? It's it's confusing, and I'm not even dealing 90 plus damage because I don't have a max needle. You want to refill silk if you're doing this because you're not gonna ever have enough silk to beat the bosses, but the second phase of this fight takes only 2 hits. So I don't know, man. It's I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to find any solid data points. I'm gonna just have to go off vibes, and the vibe for the Threat Storm, this is a damn good silk skill. It one-shots every lantern in this arena, and it 2-shots the last phase. Make sure to extend it when doing so, but at this point, I wanted to see if things like the Shaman Crest or any other damage would help. So I came back with the Shaman Crest and the Volt Filament, the 2 silk skill buffing tools in this game, and they absolutely help. They destroy those lanterns in much faster time. I didn't count the exact amount of difference, but you can see that the effect there is significant, much like the real effect of the Shaman Crest and the Volt Filaments on damage. And also, I didn't really do a lot with the other silk skills, but stuff like the Pale Nails, they don't track, because we've already figured out they're not enemies, and every other silk skill for this fight is a straight up downgrade when compared to Threadstorm, okay? That's all I have to tell you from this section, because I don't know, man. I don't know how the damage numbers work. The damage seems to apply in some cases, but doesn't seem to apply in others where there would be consistency issues. Team Cherry seems to account for damage increasing items in most cases, so they do seem to help. Barb Bracelet, all the silk skills increasing stuff helps, okay? That is the end all be all here. And the second thing to say, after I've already ended all and beat all, is that Pale Nails, Rune Rage, every other silk skill in this game beyond Threadstorm can be thrown away. Sharp Dart, not nearly as good. Parrying, who wants to parry a freaking fireball? It's gonna do no damage, it's gonna take forever. We're looking for speed here. And I think the Threadstorm with buffs is the fastest way to beat Father of the Flame. At least as I know right now, because we've only gone over 2 methods of attack. We still have our red tools to go over, my dear viewers. And the red tools are going to be very complicated for sure. Let's get my favorite part out of the way first, dear viewer. That is the red tools that are absolutely worthless because, well, for a myriad of reasons. Tax, incredible. I'm sure they're going to get up there and hit all of those lanterns. And even if you throw the tax directly on the lanterns, they don't do a single thing until they hit the ground. And stuff that you think might be amazing for this fight, like the Sting Shard, nope, it's worthless, because the Sting Shard doesn't activate until, you guessed it, it activates near enemies. You can hit them, and they will do a tiny bit of the damage they're meant to do, but other than that, they are worthless. So, what about tools that just fire things? You know, Silk Shot. That's usually pretty good. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3 shots to break a lantern. Not the worst. Also not good, because you saw how long that took compared to just shooting. The Rosary Cannon would be great if it truly was a matter of hits, but the Rosary Cannon sadly doesn't work midair, and while you can switch direction to kind of get it to shoot up, you can't shoot straight up. Yet another fault of the Rosary Cannon that exists for no reason. Just let us aim, please, Team Cherry. One of the things that made me madder than anything else on this entire video, the Flint Slate, the item whose whole purpose is to boost your needle damage by imbuing it with fire, works. We break this lantern in fewer hits than it would normally take with the Flint Slate. So, Team Cherry, adding fire to our weapon makes it easier to break lanterns. If we were hitting the wooden parts of this effigy, that'd be fine. We're not. We're hitting the lanterns. They're not made of wood. They're made to resist fire. Whatever. I've given up on trying to apply logic. So, we have the pins, the threefold and the straight pin. They're awful because you can only ever throw one at a time before you start falling down to the ground, and they don't do nearly enough damage to make that a vindicated strategy. And I'm using Beast Crest with these, so that just makes it even worse to get up there, but that's besides the point. The point is, I don't know the exact damage range. I think I have my max crafting kit on this character, but it takes way too many of these freaking pins to beat any of these lanterns. It took 8 3-full pins to beat 1 lantern. That is unacceptable, and the straight pin is certain to be even worse. It is probably going to take like double-digit amount of straight pins to break this lantern open, this main body. And while we're at it, I wanted to show off what Polyp Pouch does. It does nothing. That should be understood. That is not a bad thing. I'm happy that it does nothing, Team Cherry. If anything, you should make more things do nothing, like fire to the fire boss. Okay? Anyway, I think after 15 total pins thrown, that is what it took to beat the Father of the Flames main body. Whoop-de-doo. It's bad. So, what have we learned so far? We have learned that a lot of the tools, most of the tools in this game, are worthless. The tool that should be worthless, the fire tool, is extremely powerful. Poison's worthless. Silk Shot is okay, but it's not good. I wouldn't say it's good. And most Codfly is useless. Things like throwing rings that I didn't test, all these are going to be the exact same thing, because you can throw one of them mid-air, and that's really bad for this fight. Curve Claw, probably bad. Long Pin, probably bad. There were 4 tools I really cared about testing and thought might actually be helpful in this fight. The Pimpillo, the Conch Cutter, the Delver's Drill, and last but certainly not least, the Volt Vessels. These were the only 4 red tools I had any hope of being genuinely helpful against Father of the Flame. So, my dear viewers, let us see if we can get something that will be as effective as a Threadstorm. We come with our 4 hard hitters, our 4 potential man items. And the first one, the Conch Cutter, an item that is very good under normal circumstances. I learned to be awful in this fight. Probably due to similar reasons the Architect Crest is awful. It only ever seems to get 1 hit off against these things, and 1 hit for the Conch Cutter is pretty much antithetical to the whole point of its existence. It's supposed to hit you multiple times and drill through you. That is the whole reason this item exists, and that's what I hoped would work, because it kind of worked when we used the freaking Architect Crest basic attacks. But no, instead it takes 12 hits. We're using something just as bad as the Architect Crest Pogo. Pimpillo? Guess what? It doesn't hit them. The Pimpillo does not explode on things that aren't enemies' flesh. And that means that it is 1000% worthless in this fight. Maybe you can get the slight perfect angle to make it explode on the lantern, but in most cases, it's garbage. So 2 massive disappointments here. Amazing. I'm extremely happy about that. Fortunately for all of us, the Delver's Drill is not so terrible. It is good, and I think it was known to be one of the only tools you want to use on this fight a long time ago. 3 hits with it, lanterns are dead. Pretty great. The amount of hits it gets on the lanterns seems variable in a confusing manner, but other than that, it seems very good. And you want to know what's great, my dear viewer? So the Delver's Drill normally won't use up any tool uses if it doesn't hit the ground or it doesn't hit the enemy. So if we have 18 uses here, if you use it against the main body of Father of the Flame, it drills through him. And that's bad because it means we get less hits, but it also means we never use any of our Delver's Drill. And yeah, as I showed you, we have our max damage, so everything we've done is with a max tool kit, or a crafting kit, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, the Delver's Drill is really incredible efficiency and damage-wise. In Phase 2, it's not as great damage-wise, but I think this is the only enemy in the game that the Delver's Drill can damage without using any of its capacity. You get infinite Delver's Drills against Father of the Flames second phase, and that's pretty cool. So we finally have a tool that is worth something against this boss. Incredible. And we are left with one that I had some of the highest hopes for, unlike all these other suckers in our pocket, the Volt Vessels. and I'm going to show you both kinds of Volt Vessels too. It may not surprise you to learn the Bolas are terrible. They actually have a damaging hitbox, which I didn't know about for when you throw them. But much like the Pimpillos, there's really not a good angle you're going to get them to be able to explode on any of the lanterns in this fight. So you might as well just disregard that side of the Volt Vessels even exists and go on to the real meat, the real winner of the tools that we have been trying out so far, the steak of the Volt Vessels. Look at that. That is pure power right there. Because I throw down 2 of those and I have destroyed these lanterns. And that is incredible. It is technically weaker than the Threadstorm, and I don't know if we're going to have anything better than the Threadstorm at this job. But the Threadstorm relies on Silk, and what we have here is something that is way more repeatable and can be attached to pretty much every wall in this arena. Even when you're not allowed to use those walls for cling grip, you can throw this into the wall, which means that even when we run out of vertical range from the floor of this arena, we do not ever run out of range to hit every lantern in this arena with the Volt Vessels. If you have the Architect Crest, you can build more as well, giving you a better use for yourself than healing. And when you have the ability to angle it correctly, that's the main thing with these Volt Vessels, is that you just want to make sure that it's angled correctly and it's going to actually hit the lanterns. When it does hit the lanterns, it does incredible work, two-shotting all the basic ones. And again, this is with no upgrades. I have no idea whether or not upgrades matter. Needle upgrades did not seem to matter, but other damage boosting things did. I will be testing to see if the upgrades matter later on. But if you just throw down a bunch of Volt Vessels in the final phase, then you will pretty much destroy the Father of the Flame in, I believe that was 6 total Volt Vessels. So, at this point, I think the absolute optimal build to beat this boss is Threadstorm for all the 4 lanterns in the first phase, and then 6 Volt Vessels in the second phase. That seems like the absolute fastest way if you want to speedrun this fight. It's faster in my mind than all needle strategies, and you can use it on pretty much every crest. Any crest that gives you the ability to have a Silk skill and a tool. Hunter works. The only ones that aren't going to work are Shaman and Architect, and even though that's a shame normally, because Architect we would want to rebuild a lot, if we only need the Volt Vessels for the second phase, then it doesn't really matter. You just come in with full Silk and you've got the perfect build here. But I do want to check to see if you need max upgraded crafting kit, because I still don't know whether that matters or not. Incredibly, having crafting kit upgrades does matter. So needle upgrades, they don't matter. A lot of the abilities like Barbed Bracelet, they do matter. A lot of things like Shaman Crest and Volt Foaments, they matter. Crafting Kit matters, but Needle Upgrade doesn't. You can very clearly see how much Crafting Kit matters just by how many drills have to go through with the Delver's Drill to beat even one of these lanterns. And I'm not going to relitigate everything I've talked about today. However, I will point out that the Conch Cutters, they took 12 hits when I had the max upgraded crafting kit to break one of these lanterns. And though I just showed the Delver's Drill increasing substantially, the Conch Cutters still take 12 hits to break the lantern when your upgrades are non-existent. So having any upgrades, having max upgrades, the max damage Conch Cutters means nothing, but max damage Delver's Drill, max damage Volt Vessels, that means something. What is going on in this game? Okay? Can you tell me that, new viewers? Everyone who's made it to this point in the video, which thank you so much for doing so if you did. I appreciate your views and I appreciate your engagement, because I know this is a long video with a lot going on. But if you made it to this point, tell me, what do you think is possibly happening in this game at this point? Damage upgrades are sometimes working, sometimes doing absolutely nothing. Sometimes you'll do the exact same damage to Father of the Flame if you have no upgrades at all, as you would if you had every upgrade that had ever existed. If you have the answer, please share it with me, or rather, wait till the end of the video where I hopefully have the answer myself so that you don't have to correct me, I guess. But let's move on to the next thing, the Clawline. I didn't expect the Clawline to be too complicated because it's essentially just another attack with your needle. I have my same needle that was upgraded 3 times, and the Clawline does 0.5 times your normal needle hits twice. So the whole point is that it's just basically the same damage as 1 needle hit, so it should take only 6 Clawlines to break a lantern. And yet, it didn't. It took 7 Clawlines. I counted that. I'm sure you counted that, everyone in the comments. And I don't understand why it takes 7 Clawlines. If we do a repeat of the pogoing test, we'll see it takes solely 6 pogos to break a lantern. And yet, it takes 7 Clawlines. Is it just not counting some of the damage that we deal? Is what's going on? If we put on the barbed bracelet, will that affect the Clawline? It affects our needle damage, normally, so the needle damage is also normally affected when it comes to the Clawline. The barbed bracelet normally increases the Clawline's damage, so will it take less than 7? Okay, yes. The barbed bracelet still works for the Clawline. The Clawline also has a unique tool that increases its damage, the snitch pick. And the snitch pick is special because it doesn't increase the damage outright, but rather adds a 3rd tick of damage when used against enemies. The problem is, as we've gone over many times in this video, Father of the Flame is not considered an enemy by this game. So I figured there was a very good chance the snitch pick did nothing, and visually it certainly seems like it does nothing when I use it here. And that's not going to be provable really, except for the fact that we're dealing no more damage, and that in itself is confusing. Again, we took 7 hits to destroy the Father of the Flame. Snitch pick is useless against him, so in case any of you wanted to know that, I suppose there you go. But I'm still just confused at why it takes 7 hits to break a lantern with the Clawline. Clawline's damage calculation is 0.5 a normal needle hit twice, aka 1 times our normal damage. Where are we losing damage so that it takes us 7 hits instead of 6 hits to beat him? It's just everything that has ever been implemented in this game relating to this one boss fight is confusing. A lot of it seems like it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. I know a lot of it does work correctly, and it's just me being foolish. And I'm sure a lot of people in the comments of this video will have the answers that I'm looking for, because the internet as a whole is a smart entity. I also didn't know that you could die like that at the end of the Father of the Flame fight, but whoop-de-doo. This whole video was a thought experiment that I wanted to follow, to see how a bunch of disparate mechanics applied to one of the most unique bosses in this game. At the end of it, I feel like I have far more questions than answers, and maybe I have documented things that have never been seen before. I just wanted to bring this information out to the world to see if we could all understand what's going on here, okay? So, the last thing I have to show in this video is the culmination of what I found that does work, the best build that I could find, the Threadstorm plus Volt Vessel build. I will see how quickly you can use that build to beat Father of the Flame, and I'm not going to be doing it like the best possible performance ever either. I want to see what a casual player can do. So I made it a few additions to this build, the Plasmium Files and the Egg of Flealia, just to get me a few more uses of Threadstorm. But otherwise, the basics are the same. We have the Threadstorm, we have our additional damage with the Volt Vessels, and we have the Volt Filament. And this is a terrible performance by me, so let me apologize immediately. However, with a terrible performance, I still managed to beat this boss incredibly quickly. This is 100% the fastest I've ever killed Father of the Flame, because all it needs is not really skill, just the setup. You can optimize how quickly you get to each lantern, but at the end of the day, you use your skill 4 times, you throw down a bunch of stakes, and you won. and it's the easiest fight you'll ever find in Hollow Knight Silksong when you have this kind of optimization there. And yeah, that is the end of my exhaustive and painful deep dive into the Father of the Flame. And as I've reached the end, it is at this point where I have to share with all of you, dear viewers, the truth. This is the blurred information I kept from you for the majority of this video, and that I didn't know until basically the end of my research. Father of the Flame can be defeated by either reducing its health to 0 or hitting each section enough times, whichever comes first. If timed correctly, Father of the Flame's core should break after 30 hits, and the Wisp Lanterns after 12. They have a cooldown timer of 0.5 seconds. That is something that addresses some of the problems I had in this video. Now, I will be honest, it does not address a lot of the issues I brought up. Things like the Threadstorm. The boss's lanterns have 100 HP as listed by the Wiki. The Threadstorm still can never deal 100 damage, so why is the Threadstorm breaking any of these lanterns in one hit? Stuff like the Architect Crest Pogo should not be going to 12 hits before it beats them with my needle damage. So many other issues I had in this video are not covered by that, but hopefully at least some of you are satisfied by that wiki information, and those who are not will go out and try to research this to find the answers as well. Thank you for watching, everybody. Have a good day.